Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Monday. It is August the 25th, and this is going to be a big week. I think it's going to be a big week for me personally. It's going to be a big week for the Suspendables, and it might be a big week for some of you that are looking for a little sense of justice, that are hoping to see the right thing happen in this country for a couple of people that have done the right thing. I'll give you a little bit of a taste. I also want to say thanks to the folks that went up and met up with me on Saturday. We did a local meetup with a handful of folks that are in our chat regularly on Rumble. So if you were there, awesome. It was great meeting all of you. A heads up, I didn't know this, but we have a chat moderator over on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube and you see Crypto Rick, don't get on the wrong side of Crypto Rick. He's set up as our chat mod. I didn't even know that, but I got to meet Rick. That was very cool as well. We had Rose Lopez. Appreciate her always being there in the chat in the morning. And I also appreciate Eric Jason, who's keeping an eye on things. So if you guys have not joined our chat previously, that's where you can do it. If you want to see it live, if you want to do it, it's a very different feeling. Our show has two sort of dimensions. One of them is the podcast, and there's information, and maybe there's some news stories, and maybe there's some insight that you've never seen before. And the other is kind of this community that sort of builds up behind it. And we've had some folks that have been very, very loyal and made connections that are not related to what we do on the podcast every morning. I'm more of a vehicle to keep you guys available. So I appreciate that you guys have forged those connections and that you've made those friendships, and a lot of really neat things have happened in real life because of that. It is not because of me, it's because of you. So thank you for joining us, for those that have done that. We're going to talk today about white guilt, which is an interesting concept, and I think it's dead. I think it's dead, and I think Donald Trump, if he didn't kill it, he sure as hell fired a couple of shots that put it down. And it is certainly bleeding out because of some of the work that he's done. But it also echoes sort of a bigger sentiment in this country that people on the right, and I think independents, and God, I hope some people on the left as well, are just sick of talking about race. We're done with it. We almost killed racism in this country in any meaningful way. It's almost been gone, and it was almost gone in my childhood. I can't think of a single television program, cultural moment, icon, scenario that didn't show that race was no longer a factor in the 1990s. And yet here we are 25, 30 years later, and it's still being brought up, and it's being revived, and it's being kept alive on life support so that we've got these leftists to try to punch into us. And once again, even though there was some new life breathed into it and it got a full blood transfusion under the Obama administration, even though it should have been the opposite, all of that, I think, has failed again. And I think the second election of Donald Trump actually proved that. I think November 2024 should be the mark where we can say that was the end again. I don't know that we had a hard date previously of when it ended. So we're going to talk about that, and that's going to give us stories about Washington, D.C. and the federalization of law enforcement, moving in with the National Guard, the apologists and the apologies going on for the motorcycle, ATV, dirt bike gangs that exist throughout the eastern seaboard, but they're also in the northern Midwest, and they're even out all the way to California. So one of the ways that I'm going to show you some of this information is through vertical format videos, and I've only got a couple of slots that I normally build. I generally keep it to like 3 or 4 of those. So today's going to be a little bit more self-produced. You're going to see a little bit more of my hand behind the scenes because I'm going to have to go and grab these video clips. I can only grab so many at a time. So we're going to build those up. But the story goes something like this. The people that are trying to make apologies, the people that are trying to keep race alive, they obviously have a vested interest or a stake in it. And this podcast today is stirred, let's say, by an interaction that I had with a guy named Malik Abdul. He shows up on CNN all the time. He's a black guy. He claims to live east of the river in Washington, D.C., and he lives in Southeast D.C. per his statement. I've worked in Southeast DC, and maybe he and I have very different definitions of it. There's places like Navy Yard where you can walk around and you can have money and you can dress nicely and you can have a nice car. And then there's places like Anacostia where I used to go work. And there's some really, really ugly neighborhoods that I don't think you'd make it walking a mile in a suit no matter what color skin you had. And so to act like these things are still a problem and to act like we're actually dealing with to act like we're still dealing with racism in this country in the same meaningful way, that you can't talk about slavery, that you have to capitalize the word black, all of that stuff is really stupid. And I think it's going to be a losing bet. And if you're a quote unquote Republican and you're adding strategy to Republicans in this country at this time, you're talking to leftists and they're not interested in what you have to sell or say. And so we're going to get out from behind that. We're going to talk about white guilt and how it's kind of evolved from Trump 1.0 to 2.0. And that might be a little bit touchy, but I'm going to show you guys some stuff that this is not a new problem. I just think that people are confronting it with a new attitude. And whether you call it black fatigue or whether you just call it sort of like being an American and saying, hey, just welcome to the program. You need to get on the bandwagon that either you're in America and you want to be part of this country or you don't. And I think that is what the quote unquote MAGA ideal stands for. Making America great again would have to mean something. And I know it's a trademark brand, and I know you guys have sort of co-opted it and made it part of your identity, like I'm MAGA or I'm not MAGA. If you look at the plain words of what he was aspiring to, it was a nostalgia that America had this greatness. And many people who come into our call-in program and folks that are in our locals community will let me know that that kind of peaked somewhere in the 80s or the 90s. And, you can argue that there's better music in the 70s, and I probably agree with you. But the idea that everything was pretty darn good before 9/11, it's hard to argue with. For all the problems and failings of this country, we had a really sort of good experience that those of us who remember it share. And those who were born after the fact don't. They don't know it. And that's why I have more in connection. I guess I'm an elder millennial, but I have more in connection with the Gen Z and even you boomers. We have more in common with our childhood because I grew up analog, like so many other people. And I don't want to apologize for the way I grew up or where I grew up or this country, which I thought was great and I hope one day would be great again. We may be going into another phase of it, but we'll see. I'm not as optimistic that the same state continues, but I am optimistic that all of us will continue to be neighbors and live next to each other. And, I'll walk outside barefoot and be able to walk back into my house, and I don't have to have a machete at my hip. Let's talk about my friends over at Cylent real quick before we get deep into the weeds here, because there's lots to cover. Cylent is an outstanding company. They make a really cool product, and what they're trying to do is give you something that is kind of that throwback, that nostalgia, like where you weren't being tracked by a cell phone, because the thing that's in your pocket, your tablet, your phone, your laptop, all of your social media, all this stuff, they're all tracking you nonstop. Government agencies use it, big tech, corporate data brokers, cyber criminals, everybody wants a piece of your digital footprint. They don't ask, they just take it. Usually it's in the terms of service. That's why Cylent exists. If you want to be able to take control of things and kind of have an analog moment, that's kind of the way I like to think about it. Cylent makes Faraday gear. It blocks all wireless signals. That's cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, RFID, near-field communication. No signal means no tracking, no remote access, no breadcrumbs, and nobody hacking your stuff. Yeah, think about the number of things that we are putting out into the world as we walk around, all those little signals that are radiating to be able to track us. If you guys want to eliminate that and step back in time for a little bit of time, you might want it. You can use the same technology that our friends over in Special Operations use around the world. It doesn't matter whether you're working as a CIA case officer or whether you're a Special Operations guy in the military. Secure comms is critical. Being able to block signals, avoid surveillance. It's a critical mission feature. I used to do it when I was in the FBI with our sources and so on. If you want to be able to take that technology home, it's not that expensive. You should get the good stuff, not the garbage, because it leaks and then you won't be getting the value. Use my name, KYLE, as a promo code at slnt.com/Kyle. Make sure my name fills in there. Cylent.com/Kyle. You get 15% off. You get free shipping on qualified orders. And all you got to do is drop your phone in the sleeve like I do every single morning before we start the podcast. You drop it in, away goes the signal, off grid, and everything goes silent completely. You're invisible to the outside world, and you erase that digital footprint, at least for a little while. Get yourself a little peace of mind. That's slnt.com/KYLE. Let's do this. We might touch some third rails here for politics, but I think that's what we do here at the Kyle Seraphin Show. And I don't want to be shy about this because this is an inherently racial moment in DC, and our press is actually making it that moment. There's nothing we can do about it. Here's the story. I want you to just look at what you're seeing on the screen. That's Muriel Bowser. She's got a new look. It's more ethnic as well. DC students are heading back to school amid Trump's law enforcement surge. That's a headline from ABC News. The DC mayor says it doesn't need troops to get kids to school safely. What an interesting thing to tie together. She's tied together kids going to school in Washington, D.C. public schools and a 2,000 person National Guard surge to try to crack down on crime in Washington, D.C., where crime is rampant. Now, you can avoid crime in Washington, D.C. There's no question in my mind. You can walk lots of places. I used to go for a jog, either with or without my handgun when I was in the bureau. You can roll around in the National Mall, and generally speaking, you'll be left alone. There's plenty of places in Northwest and Northeast, and even in Southeast that you can go walk around on foot. You can dress nicely, like you're going to go work in government, and you can get away with it. And by get away with it, I mean you have to be really pretty strategic about your routes if you want to avoid criminal activity or if you want to avoid people who are just generally sort of ne'er-do-wells. But yeah, you could do that. But you also could find yourself sitting at a nice brunch location. And I had a colleague who lived in D.C., worked in D.C. with me. And she'd come in almost every other weekend and she'd be like, oh man, you won't believe what I saw. Oh, what was it? What was that thing that you saw? Oh, you saw a motorcycle gang of dirt bike riding 25 black young men between the ages of, let's say, 15 and 35, 15 and 40. That surrounded some Filipino guy who was just trying to do his freaking laundry at a laundromat on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. And they beat the shit out of him and took all of his stuff, took his money and threw his stuff on the ground. Why would they do that? He didn't look rich, did he? And she's like, no. And I was like, why didn't you intervene? She was like, I only had one extra magazine. I was carrying a Glock 26. I had 26 rounds. I wasn't going to go, or 20 rounds total, plus one. I didn't want to go in there. It's like, yeah, I don't blame you. You're a female. And even though she was kind of like a pretty cool chick for an FBI agent, like, you're going to go fight 25 dudes? No. Where are the cops? Why don't they show up? Why don't they follow down on this thing that continues to happen? And if you go show people what that is, if you've never seen it, I'm going to share it with you so you guys have an understanding. But if you go show people what that is, you're not supposed to say that they're black. You're not supposed to say that the people that are doing this are between school age, high school age, college age, and then young working professional age, black men who don't have purpose. And I used to work in the neighborhoods in Southeast that are absolutely atrocious, where you'd find hundreds of young men under the age of 50. They are not retirement age, and they certainly didn't have disabilities based on the way they moved around, or they were working out in their front yards and all this other kind of crap. And you'd see it. And you're like, what are these dudes doing? Oh, they're doing open air drug markets. Oh, they're planning their next bank robbery. Now, granted, I was an FBI agent, so my job was to investigate federal crime. So, I got something of an eye for finding people who are dealing narcotics. I got something of an eye for people that are involved in planning a bank robbery. And we, would go and surveil people. And all these neighborhoods and all these cross streets, you're like, damn, I might have to switch up my vehicle a couple of times per week because we're going to be out here all the time. We're going to be sitting on the same freaking streets. And how many times can a guy who looks like me, if you're not watching and if you've never seen the show, I have blue eyes, I have a beard, and I have pretty white skin, even though I've got a pretty good tan going because it's the summer and I work outdoors a lot. I stand out. One of the great stories on surveillance that I had was a buddy of mine who was a very senior FBI agent. He had gray hair. He would wear Hawaiian shirts all the time. We couldn't talk him out of it. And we would go into the shittiest black neighborhoods in Southeast DC or in like Maryland, which is right across the state line border there. It's Southern Avenue, I believe. So you'd be in these areas and you'd be parked. And there is no reason why a 50-something-year-old Marine Corps veteran FBI surveillance agent who's like tall, skinny, white, wearing a Hawaiian shirt with flip-flops and shorts on, that guy doesn't belong there. And they know it. The residents of these streets, of these neighborhoods, they'd walk by and they'd see him and they'd be like, oh no. So you'd have Jay get on the radio and he'd go, I think someone's taking a look at me, kind of a hard eye on me. And you go, okay, do you need to get out of there? And he go, let me try something. And I swear, whether he did this or not, he told me he did this, which is even funnier, like one way or another. He said he just unbuttoned his Hawaiian shirt and started touching his nipples. And there's nothing funnier than seeing like some like hard thug guy who's like, hey, I think that looks like a cop, looks you down through the window and finds out you're not a cop. You're just a weirdo that pulled over on the side of the road to touch your nipples. And so it works. And so you get to throw the stink off you. But you look like a freaking cop if you look like me or if you're older than me and you look like me in these neighborhoods. Well, why is that? Because they're black neighborhoods. We just call them what they are. Let's be honest about it. But you're not supposed to say that. And you're not supposed to say that they're unsafe for some reason. And for some reason, we've drawn the analogy that DC students who head back to school are also going to be somehow affected by a law enforcement surge that Donald Trump is doing to try to clean up Washington, D.C. And I don't think it's the right tool. I've told you that. I think they should cede it to Maryland and let it see what it looks like. But Maryland's done a crap job, and they've done a crap job of this for a very long time. We're going to talk about the 12 o'clock boys. If you're not familiar with that, you'll be educated today. I'm going to read the story a little bit. Muriel Bowser went on and told ABC News, "We don't need federal agencies to help get kids to school. We'll take care of getting our kids to school." Implies by ourselves. What she doesn't realize is that those kids, many of them, are not really kids. They're acting like men. They're attempting to be men, even though they are not. They don't have a male role model, and they are the reason why it's unsafe in Washington, D.C. An FBI agent was carjacked by a 17-year-old high school age boy, treated like a man, but a boy, not even of the age of majority yet. You see it all the time that the people who are involved in the carjacking spree are 16. They're 15 or 14 years old, and they're carrying a gun in our nation's capital. And so nothing tells us that there is a failure in this nation more than looking at your capital city and realizing they can't even handle the simplest thing out there. I do understand Trump's instinct to want to make sure the National Guard comes in. The difference between me, a conservative, and a lot of the Republicans is they're looking for a win, and I'm looking for the system to work. And the system is supposed to be that we actually divest things back to local control. DC can't run itself, though. That's proven. And it shouldn't answer to Congress. It should answer to a state. I don't think our founders ever fathomed that we would have people living under the rule of Congress directly without a member of the body that does the legislation. That's crazy. So they cry about taxation without representation, but they chose to live there. I can't fathom why anybody would do it. And everybody who tells me that they live in Washington, D.C. and here's their experience, I go, you're not living in America, so nobody cares. I mean that like hypothetically. For all the conspiracy theories, I did have a lady pop up one time at a speech I gave in New York, and she gave me her theory that Washington, D.C. is actually not America, and that's why it's controlled by the globalists. Just divest yourself of the crazy and hone in on the fact that it is not the way that Americans live. That's what I mean when I say not America. And that includes California. It's certainly in the major cities. It includes everything on the East Coast that's basically north of the Potomac. It's not America to me. Even parts that kind of resemble it sometimes, like rural PA. You're still being governed by what's going on in your major cities, Philly and Pittsburgh. And they're not America in my experience. They're not the same as mine. Like you can't order a flamethrower. They won't send it to you. Somebody will look at you weird if you're driving around in a diesel truck in a lot of these places, with some small exceptions, like up in Maine, and various rural parts. I understand that there are some exceptions here, but let's just broadly speak and have a problem with this. The school year begins as Bowser and the Office of State Superintendent of Education, which, by the way, that means Washington, D.C., not a state. It's a federal district, touts proficiency rates in English are the highest since they had prior to COVID-19 pandemic, and that ELA, which is English and Language Arts, has the highest on record. It's still crap. I found this story the other day, and it reminded me of how nutty our world is, where we've got these poor kids that are coming out and they don't even know how to speak or read English. So what do you do with that? What do you do with people that don't even know how to read English and they're going to college, right? Shouldn't that be a problem? Let's see if I can find this story here because I'm having to dig it up on the fly. The idea that something would mean something when you graduate from anywhere, that you could graduate high school, it should mean a minimum competency, should it not? If you graduate from college or you even get into college, it used to actually mean something. And for some reason, it doesn't anymore. For some reason, you're able to just cruise on. Here's a girl that can't read or write in English, and I do think that this is part of that suicidal empathy. I think that it came from white guilt, where people were like, we need to give opportunities to people, no matter who they are, whether they've earned it or not, because they work so hard to come to America, or they work so hard trying to survive the streets, or whatever other nonsensical reasons that make people who have a bleeding heart and they mean well, and all they've done is they've ruined things for that person, and then they've ruined things for all the other people that participated in it. Listen to this story out of UConn. This is not a new story, but this is something that did hit me over the weekend. It's like, yeah, this is exactly what's going on here. This is suicidal empathy, and it hurts everybody. It doesn't just hurt this person. It actually hurts the institution, and it hurts the people that also get degrees from those institutions and so on.
Did you ever think you'd be going to college here? No, never. Never in a million years.
In some ways, Alicia Ortiz is living an American dream. The 19-year-old began her freshman year at the University of Connecticut in Hartford this fall. She's excited to study public policy, the culmination of hard work after moving north from Puerto Rico as a child.
Do you remember when you first came to Connecticut?
Yes, I remember I was very nervous, but I know it was going to be better opportunities for me to learn.
But Alicia says those opportunities never came to fruition.
Even today, could you read this, or would it take you a long time?
It's impossible. I just see his words everywhere.
Alicia graduated from the Hartford Public School System last year, but she says today she is illiterate. She still doesn't know how to read or write. When she was in early education,
They would just either tell me to stay in a corner and sleep, or just draw pictures, flowers for them.
She can't even speak English properly. She can't read. She got to go to college. How? I mean, many of you either went to college or you have kids who did recently, and there's always these like college essays, and there's applications, and there's exams. I remember people used to, like, I went to a college prep school. That was a big deal. They put everything on hold. They would go to SAT prep classes to get into colleges. They'd want to go even to get into a state school because they wanted to try to get a scholarship. Now you've got this dim bulb who doesn't speak English properly, who came to this country. She doesn't actually tell us whether or not she came here legally. And she got a graduation diploma from the Hartford public school system. She got a high school diploma, which is supposed to mean a minimum competency. And then she turned around and got into college. But she can't read because she spent her entire time in schooling drawing pictures of flowers in the corner. I mean, this is why. This is the direct line that I see. Why? When you set that soft bigotry of low expectations that we've heard about as people on the political right for years, they have damaged the people that were in her class. They have cheapened the degrees and the work that those people did. They have ruined this poor girl. They've put her in a situation where she is guaranteed to fail. Yeah, I don't consider Puerto Rico America. The chat is out here trying to correct me. It's Puerto Rico. Yeah, whatever. You're right. I missed that. Her English is still crap. What do we speak in this country? We speak a language that everybody should understand. And if you don't, then you end up on the roadways and not knowing what to do. Do you think that girl can do anything in this country functionally? I don't. I'll give you guys credit. You guys call me out on something. That's fine. The National Guard is in D.C. and they're armed and they're worried about that. Like, what did you think the military's purpose was? It wasn't there to come and play patty cake with people. You've given people an opportunity to step into a very dangerous scenario, which is what that is. You've put them in a situation where you've got armed motorcycle gangs and ATV riders who are hell-bent on not obeying the law, and they think it is their right to whatever the hell they want. This is a video from 2 days ago. This happened on Saturday. This is 7:56 p.m. according to the timestamp. There are many such examples of the reason why the DC National Guard is armed right now, and you're watching the political left flip out and act like it's being mean to kids. It's kids that they're armed for. Look at that. And I can tell you by looking at that street, that's one of the nicer streets. So what are they doing? Those are ATVs, those are dirt bikes, those are non-road ready. They're driving into oncoming traffic. They got no problem. They pop wheelies. And then you ask, like, what is this all about? Like, why do they do this? Go look up. If you don't think this is real or this is not something that's been happening for a long time, it has been happening for quite a long time. I'm going to turn the volume down on it. Look, the guy's going around a car that's doing a legal turn. They'll zap right in. They're putting themselves at risk. They're putting the drivers at risk. They're putting pedestrians at risk. There's a cop driving right there with them, doing nothing, pulling over no one. Is that a good service to any of these people, these kids, or these young men? Is it helping them achieve anything? What's crazy is you get these these generally right-leaning sort of libertarian types that will go out there and tell you like, hey, like they're just exercising their right to travel and you're allowed to travel as long as... No, we have rules. You're on city streets that are paid for by everybody. So you can't go do this. And some people might wonder, like, where did that come from? Why is it like that? And I want to play you something that was put out 15 years ago. I actually thought that this story was actually only 12 years old. It's a 15-year-old story. There's a movie about it that's been out for at least 12 years as well, called The 12 O'Clock Boys. I'll explain to you what they are in a second. This is not a new phenomenon. This is a continued phenomenon that has existed for quite a while. And in having it and allowing this sort of quote unquote bleeding off of pressure, you're telling people that it's acceptable to break the law because you feel stressed or because your life is rough. And that is the opposite of what we do in this country. There are no mobile gangs of dirt bike and ATV riding thugs that happen in cities that are full of nothing but like hillbilly rednecks. I've never seen them. I've looked for them. And I've been aware of this phenomenon for like at least 10 years now. But you will find them in Oakland. You'll find them in Chicago. You'll find them in St. Louis. You'll find them in Washington, D.C. You'll find them in various places in New Jersey. I don't think they've hit New York City. You'll find it in Cincinnati. I've got videos of a lot of this stuff. And you'll definitely find them in Baltimore, where I don't know if it grew out of Baltimore or if that's just what it is. But these are people that do not qualify for a driver's license, same as the people who don't qualify for a diploma. They don't have a driver's license. They're not able to have a driver's license. Oftentimes, if not most times, these are stolen. And then they go out there and they wreak havoc on people. Check this. You guys tell me if you've ever heard this. This is the New York Times from 2010.
For President Obama.
That is not the New York Times for 2010. I got the wrong clip. That's why. Here we go. This is an opinion piece. An opinion doc. Okay, 12 O'Clock Boys. They're going to ride with 12 O'Clock Boys. This is done in 2013. So this is 12 years ago. I was correct. Helicopter.
I want to know what we're doing about these little scumbags on these dirt bikes in our downtown. I want to know. If anyone out there has seen this, please call.
Okay, so the guy who said that was the police commissioner. Here's where it's going to get controversial.
I mean, these kids are just little bastards. These aren't like nice kids. And the problem is, I'm going to throw it out there, because they're African American. Nobody wants to say it because no one wants to take action, because you got young black kids they're misbehaving. You gotta do something. You gotta do something. I don't care if they get hurt. Frankly, I don't care if one of them dies.
Now you got a kid kicking a police cruiser in Baltimore City.
You will see it all. You will learn the right way to do all the wrong in Baltimore City. Have a PhD in it.
All right, so they go on an interview. I'm going to put this little clip. It's about a 4-minute clip, and I don't want to put all of it up, but I'm going to show this over on KyleSerafin.com, so we'll put up a little link to that there, and you guys will be able to watch it. The fact of the matter is if you're going to go out there and ride into oncoming traffic, if you're going to disrespect law enforcement, you're going to kick police cars, and you're going to act like none of this stuff, is a problem. Those bad behaviors are the same reasons why Giuliani went after broken windows and people that had various property violations. If you allow the riffraff to proliferate in your city, then you're going to have all the problems that you're going to have from people who learn the wrong lessons, that they can get away with small things. People who can be trusted with small things can be trusted with bigger things. People who will get away with small crimes will try bigger ones. And they do. And almost all those guys now have learned that they can break the law with impunity. They start carrying guns. Many of them have criminal records. And if they don't, they will have a criminal record at some point in time, but it'll be something way bigger than they should have been ticketed and said, hey, you've lost this bike. And by the way, you stole this bike. So now you got grand theft. And now you've been removed from your ability to legally own a gun. And now you've just really limited yourself. No, we're going to teach them the wrong lessons. We're going to get away from it until it becomes something horrifically bad, dangerous. And that's the story that Mike Waller wrote. And it's not a very recent article. The fact of the matter is, this has been a problem for a long time. Mike Waller is a guy that's been on our program. If you guys want to go back and listen to a really good interview talking about the history of the FBI, talking about it, the intelligence sort of aspect of it, a lot of really good information that came from Mike Waller. He's a think tank guy. He lives in D.C. He also has a place up in the Northeast, out in a cabin somewhere, so he can get away. I think it's in New Hampshire. But he tells me all the time that D.C. is incredibly dangerous and that he's glad that Bruen came down so he can carry a gun. And that his neighbors know that they have to look out for each other. And they live in a really nice part of Washington, D.C. This story just got run the other day. It's about something that happened months ago. Carjacked in the Capitol. The crime of the pandemic is still roiling D.C. So they had something like almost 1,000 carjackings last year. The year before it was 500. This year we're on track for another 500 or so. So they're really excited that they're down to 500 freaking carjackings. That's a ton of cars. That's almost 2 a day. It was after 8 p.m. when Mike Waller pulled up to his home in a well-to-do block of Capitol Hill. This is where all the, the people who have money and means and work around our government do. Waller, then 59, glanced at his phone to check an email, and within seconds, 2 men appeared on either side of his gray Mercedes waving handguns. They say Glock handguns. The man on the passenger side opened it up and slammed his gun into Waller's right ear and scalp, knocking him out momentarily. When he came to, he was still strapped in with his seatbelt, blood flowing down the side of his head. The gunman ordered him out of the car and commanded him to throw his phone into the bushes. As they began to drive away, one pointed his gun at Waller and threatened to kill him on the spot, prompting Waller, battered and bloody, to duck into an alley. These guys knew what they were doing. They were completely smooth about it, he said. He's a defense and foreign policy strategist for the Center for Security Policy, a conservative think tank. They seemed like real professionals. Waller has been all over the world doing shady things for the American government on behalf of our people. He's been in Central America, which can be very dangerous. He was in the Soviet Union, which can be really dangerous. Then he was in there afterwards. For all of you that think that this is this is just because somebody had poor situational awareness, when you're dealing with people who are professionals, they take advantage of folks. They don't have to strike right then. They take advantage of folks when they are distracted. How many of you look down at your phone when you're pumping gas and are not aware that that is the best time to be able to pull something from you, either your wallet or your car or your life? How many are not aware of that? Because I can tell you, if you want to do a really good grab on somebody, if you want to snatch somebody up when they're not aware and they are not most likely to grab their weapon, that's when I would have my SOG teams go and watch people. If you want to go take somebody down, I've seen it done so smoothly. You pull up a minivan to the other side of where you're getting gas. You're in there pumping. You got your credit card. You got your wallet. You're thinking about whatever it is. It's like 2 guys get out. They put you in the minivan and you're gone. Most people are most unaware when they are doing mundane tasks like accessing their wallet or pulling into their house and hitting the garage door opener and getting ready to go home. Because you got a million things on your mind. Nobody is living in the red all the time. The red is sort of that like heightened sense of awareness where at any moment, death or serious physical injury could happen. Most of us live somewhere between the yellow and the orange, but occasionally we're in these white moments or these black moments where we're completely task saturated and we're unable to process new stuff. And then you find out that as you open the door to get out to go to your house, bam, you've got a freaking a gun punched into your head. Now, that doesn't happen in nice neighborhoods. It doesn't happen in my neighborhood. And it probably doesn't happen in yours. But if you live in D.C. near the Capitol, it's a real thing. His carjacking had no headlines. It happened in August of 2021. He's told me about it privately as well. And I know that this means something personally to a lot of folks that live in that area. And just because you haven't experienced crime personally, the odds of you living in Washington, D.C. and experiencing somebody near you, one of your neighbors, one of your friends, having a nasty criminal action happen, it's basically all of them. And it's almost always black people, like the highest percentage you can imagine, whatever it is, 85%, 90%. There's some Hispanic gangs that work in the area too. But it's really specific who's doing street level crime. And acting like it's not, and acting like this is somehow going to be a problem. And we're how threatening the children because Donald Trump has put a bunch of people from the National Guard in there is insane. It's an insane proposition. And it actually shows you that they hate what's going on here. They hate the people that they are actually in charge of. They want them to be in a miserable and an ugly place. You only have homeless people sleeping on the wall of the federal courthouse in our nation's capital by choice. It could be a choice to neglect that. But that doesn't happen. Drug dealing happening on federal property when every single federal agent drives into work in the morning. That only happens because there has been a complete ignoring of the issue. And a lot of it comes down to white guilt. Because overwhelmingly, I'll say 95 out of 100 of the homeless people that I saw in Washington, D.C. were black males. Tons of them. It doesn't make the National Guard the solution. It might be a temporary solution. I just don't want it to stick around. It's not a good answer. But there is clearly a problem. And our media turns around and acts like racism and bigotry and your guilt for living in a safer area is the problem. That's the crazy piece. And I'm going to show you some more of those stories in a second. Before we do, if you live in the part of the world where you actually have enough room and you worry about other things like not somebody carjacking you, maybe you're worried about things like blackouts. Maybe you're worried about the Department of Energy's projections saying that we're going to see a skyrocketing of needs for energy and failures of our electrical grid. I've got this kind of handled already. This is something that I've been noticing in my own thing. Even just little brownouts are a problem. That's why we have the Grid Doctor 3300 here at the house. It sits right outside the studio. It's quiet enough to operate inside. It's pretty neat. And we actually had multiple real world tests. You put it in UPS mode, so the uninterrupted power supply, and your critical stuff, whether it be a refrigeration or whether it be your AC unit or whether it be something like, I don't know, your medical refrigerator that keeps your meds or some sort of life-saving stuff. All that will continue to roll even when the power goes out. Power outages could increase by more than 10,000% over the next few years, says the Department of Energy. If you don't have a backup generator of some kind, this is a time you can do it. This is one that anybody can own. You don't need to have like piped in propane. You don't need to have like something special. Unlike a gas generator, it's quiet, it's fume free. You can use it indoors for just the things that you need. It's powerful enough that almost everything in your home can run off it, and it can run for a while. This whole studio is supposed to run for like 60 hours if we lost power here, based on the calculations we've done and from turning it off, from having actual power drops. It gives you a calculation of how much time you got left before it's empty. We've partnered with My Patriot Supply for years. Here's the deal. Right now, this is the deal where you can get their Grid Doctor 3300 and you're going to get a free battery expansion pack. They're like a $1,300 value. You're going to get that when you buy the main product, the actual solar generator. Go to mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle, mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle. I haven't needed it yet, but I actually am just like an over-preparing kind of guy, and I very much want the battery expansion pack. They're neat, they're modular, they're carryable by one person. You're talking about like 20-something pounds, so like a regular person could carry it off. Again, go check out the deal that they're doing right now. It's not forever, but it does seem like a pretty neat option if you want to be able to run things for a very long time because you want to be self-reliant. And you don't want to be beholden to anybody else. MyPatriotSupply.com/KYLE, as usual, are sponsors. You can find the links in the show description. What is the media telling you is the real problem here? They're telling you that it's that our government is overactive and it's really mean to brown people. It's mean to black people. It doesn't give them a chance. Here's what might check in for Kilmar Abrego Garcia's ICE check-in. Here's what might happen when he goes and checks in with ICE. Now, luckily, we're late enough in the day to be able to find out that, in fact, he was taken into custody. That's the best part. But they were actually writing articles about a guy who broke our law, who's an alleged MS-13 member, and God forbid he actually be deported. He got deported, he got brought back, and then they had to release him. There's been all this, I bet millions of dollars worth of Democrat donation lawfare has been done on this one guy alone. And so I've got a video of him coming home, which is absolutely absurd and ridiculous. You cannot make this kind of stuff up. This is a video of Abrego Garcia returning home. And of course, they had a celebration. And of course, the celebration is not in English.
Mi nombre es Kilmar Abrego García. Hoy ha sido un día muy especial porque
Dude, nothing like renting a hotel to be able to do this video.
Después de más de 160 días y quisiera
he can read. Saying, he's reading off a script there. And I don't really care about the jazz music in the background. Okay, so what's the story? What the story is that they were very, very worried that he was going to get deported again, that he was going to be grabbed and then exported to Uganda to some sort of holding cell. So you have ABC News saying, here's what could happen. He's under threat of deportation. He's been threatened with deportation to Uganda. He's expected to appear before immigration authorities on Monday morning in Baltimore. That's today. This was written today, earlier this morning. And then I've got the CNN live update. He's been taken into custody by ICE, his lawyer says, because he has no right to be in this country. He doesn't belong here, nor should he be here. But if you live in a world where you feel guilty about your quote unquote white privilege, if you feel guilty about American privilege, that you live in a place where you have so much wealth available to you, when you have safety as a default condition, if you feel guilty about the rest of the world cannot come to the United States, then you somehow make excuses for people who violate the law. And then you end up making excuses for guys like this, alleged MS-13 members, guys who've had police reports filed on them for domestic battery, for domestic violence against the wife who's standing there next to him. And she doesn't know any better. Like, what is she going to do, though? You've put these people, I've said this many times, the leftist argument against illegal immigration is just as strong as the one on the right. On the one on the right, we're like, get the hell out of here. You don't belong here. You broke the law. You have no business in my country. Out. But let's say you're on the left. Let's say you're a bleeding heart lib. It's seriously simple. You can have the argument with these people. I will tell you definitively, having worked in MS-13 neighborhoods, having worked with MS-13 sources who are reporting on the gang and are being extorted by the people that are around them. Okay, the sources are usually not in MS-13. They are just living in neighborhoods that are controlled by MS-13. Here's what happens. They pay somebody to get them across the border into the United States, expecting paradise, expecting happiness, expecting all of the opportunities that they've been lied to, even though they don't speak English and don't have any useful skills. So they come here and they get dropped into some crap hole neighborhood. And it could be in Dallas. It could be in Los Angeles. It could be outside of Baltimore. It could be right next to Washington, D.C., like Casa de Maryland. All you got to do is get them into those neighborhoods, and then they're screwed. And then what do? You're in America. You're thousands of miles from any border that you know. You speak a language that people don't. Oftentimes, you don't even speak like normal Spanish. Sometimes they'll speak other languages. And you think that you were coming here to get something brilliant and beautiful. And then you realize that all you have is an abusive boyfriend and a gang that's going to extort you for any dollar that you make. And so they extort people who make a couple $100s a week for $20 every single week. And they'll do that to hundreds of people. And that turns into a 6-figure income for the gang in extortion. And it's teenagers with guns that are doing it. It doesn't matter if they're black or brown. In this case, they're brown people. And they're abusing who? Other brown people. What you've done is you've brought in a captive victim population that has no access or recourse to law enforcement, that has no access to culture or language, that has no assimilation capabilities, that has no legal right to be here, and is under constant threat of deportation. And you've made them victims of the gang that comes here and does the same thing because they prey on the kindness of Americans. It's white, liberal, moronic voters that say, I want to help these poor people, but I don't care if they break the law. And then suddenly you realize that those people are actually worse off here than they were back home. Because at least back home, they knew the culture, they knew the rules, they knew what was going to happen. And you're going to cry about it. When this guy, who by all accounts and by all evidence that's been pointed out, shows was part of the actual problem. Not one of the nice people that came here and worked their ass off. And yeah, do I have some sympathy for people like that? Of course. I'm a regular human being. If you busted your ass to go solve a problem and make your kid's life better, who's going to be mad at you about that? You still got to do it the right way. You can't, I couldn't go do it in another country, and neither can you. But I have empathy for that. Or you can be a dude who's got MS-13 tats, who wears the Chicago Bulls hat, not living in Chicago, not being a Chicago Bulls fan, simply because it has the horns, and we know exactly what it means. And you're going to see leftists activate for that. I've got this video that tells you how structured and how BS the entirety of the leftist news, and sometimes you get these like little moments. The AP, the Associated Press, uploaded a raw version of their newscast. And they did this a couple days ago. This is Lisa Dwyer. She's reading a news story, and it's so staged, scripted, and edited, just like that video you saw of Ortega Garcia, that when you realize what these people do to thread together a newscast that sounds so polished, it makes me laugh. Like, how does that lady have a job in mainstream media and Steve Friend does not? Steve Friend can at least go and speak extemporaneously, accurately about almost anything. Clearly, we do the same thing here. You guys are seeing that I'm programming this in the background. Like, for those of you who don't realize it, like, this is what it looks like. This is what I got. I got no script. I got the visual of what's in front of me that says, like, so I can see what I'm sending out into the stream, what's going to be the podcast. And we just wing it every single time. And then you got these clowns. And this is it's so illustrative of how goofy these people are and how fake it is. They're not even reading their own words. Watch this.
Indicating what?
And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu indicating
you can get it. Come on.
The firing is the latest upheaval in the U.S. military and intelligence agencies and comes a few months after details of a preliminary Details of a preliminary assessment of the U.S. strike on Iran were
I'm going to pause it for a second. So if you're just listening, there's a guy that's filming his screen, and it's the AP podcast or it's the AP radio thing. How goofy is it? This lady has put on a voice that sounds like this so that when she goes on air, she has a problem. Let's get a running start and try to tell the story again. I'm reading things directly off the script. I have no thoughts of my own. I am simply going to convey propaganda that someone else wrote. I mean, this is nonsense. This is not how regular people talk. Some of the folks that are in our chat right now got to see me talk on Saturday. This is how I normally talk. Sometimes I laugh. Sometimes I think it's funny. This is the way that I operate. And then instead, you've got these people that are giving you this old school, polished, produced thing. One of the folks that I talked to at Catholic Vote when we were originally doing a transition over, this is going back to November of last year. They were like, make it more raw. It's okay to have the podcast be a little more raw and a little less produced, because people want to know that when, you know, the fly-by-wire feel, which means that when I pull something, the wire activates and, you know, the flap goes. This is a concept that it's the plane that we have here. The news information that is being shared is being generated to you from a real brain at a real moment in time. And it might not be true in a few minutes. And sometimes I say things wrong, like a lady from Puerto Rico is not from America, even though technically, I guess it is America. I wouldn't want to be there. I'm going to continue this video just because it's a little bit funny. I'm not going to play all of it, but it's about 2 minutes long. You guys can find this online as well. Timcast put it out. But it does show you the falsity of it. That there's an agenda, there's a narrative, there's a script. There's literally a script. And that's why we got to be worried about what's going on with Obregon Garcia, the most famous illegal alien in America. And it's not even a good case. It's not even a good case study.
Oh, boy.
What is going on?
Try again.
The guy's laughing too.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has fired a general whose agency's initial intelligence assessment of damage to Iranian nuclear sites from U.S. strikes angered President Donald Trump.
How shitty at your job are you, lady? This is not that hard. You read the script. I read freaking stories every day. I pull them up live and I give them to you guys. If you don't know, when you see me looking off to the side, that's where the story is. Again, it's crazy. It's fully nuts. He's under deportation threat. He got deported. The crowd groaned and chanted, "Shame, shame," after they got him in custody in Baltimore. His lawyer came out. His lawyer's name is Simon Sandoval Moshenberg. Oh my God, that's so good. Sandoval Moshenberg. What the hell? Mr. Abrego Garcia was taken into custody by ICE this morning, he said. He reported this after he was released from custody pending a trial on federal charges. Those are the human trafficking and smuggling charges, folks. That's why I'm blown away that the talentless human beings that have to do multiple takes and they put on the fake voice. Jeez Louise. And these stories, they're so desperate to give us what it is. Why? Why are they giving it? Here's Cincinnati, by the way. This suicidal empathy, this white guilt thing, it's falling apart. It has to, because people can't watch this stuff and be like, oh yeah, that's what I want to live in. I showed you from 2013 Baltimore, New York Times. Again, go to KyleSerafin.com if you guys want to see this old clip from the New York Times doing a puff piece about how breaking the law was a way to blow off steam for urban youths. Yeah, I'm doing the my cousin Vinny. The youths. How many is 2 youths? The youths. They're riding dirt bikes and motorcycles because they are starting at a gate. It's like a gateway drug, but it's a gateway crime. You're going to ride illegally, then you're going to carry a gun illegally, then you're going to carjack a dude because guess what? Riding around on dirt bikes where you can go anywhere and you can jump up on, and you're used to popping wheelies and running around on the side streets or popping up on the curbs. It's a really good way to get yourself into position and to get away from a carjacking. This is Cincinnati. Again, cop car right there doing nothing. It's tolerance, but it's not in a good way. It's the same way that you tolerate this a-hole Abrego Garcia being in our country, and people are out there crying for it. They're sad for this man, who, if he lived next to them, they'd be terrified of.
Look your legs. They're doing fucking wheelies right behind it.
tell from the commentator's voice, the girl filming this, that she's a white young woman. She's got that white young woman voice. And they're starting to realize 12, 13, 15 years of this crap, it's starting to become problematic to people that are looking out going like, wait a minute, why do we live like this? Why do we have to have people that break the law? And why can we not say that they all look the same? Like if 50 guys in a crowd are black, can you describe it? I had this funny little moment where this guy was like, is Kyle a racist? She's a liberal racist. They're all racist. Let me help you out real quick. Describe to me what I would be looking for in the human beings, the human persons that are involved in riding wheelies and motorcycles around Washington, D.C., or Baltimore, or Philly, or Cincinnati, or Chicago, or St. Louis, or Oakland. What would they look like? Like, imagine I just have my eyes closed and I want to go find these people because I got to give them something. What do they look like? Well, Kyle, they're under the age of 35 and they're over the age of 15. Okay? And they're men or males. Oh, okay. So we got boys and young men. Got it. Well, anything else? Nope. That's it. So I'm just looking for like men between the ages of 15 and 30. Any other identifying characteristics that would help me find them? Yeah, they live in shitty neighborhoods and they're all black guys. Oh, okay. How do you know those things are stolen, Seraphin? Oh, because we used to work the cases all the time. And they were always like, it's like, you know that they were seen on those things. What were they involved in? Street level crime. Murders, gang activity. It's non-negotiable. That's just that's who uses those things. Could they afford those? Maybe. If they did, it was because they were doing like drug transactions for cash. Shouldn't cops be looking at people that are buying that? Maybe. How about we don't profile the people that are buying ATVs, although I really question some things about you buying an ATV if you live in Baltimore or if you live in Washington, D.C. Like, why are you buying an ATV? Like, where do you ride the thing? How do you get it there? Do you own even a trailer to take it home? Oh, you're going to ride it off the lot? That seems like an indicator. But I don't want to profile people that buy stuff in America because I live in a free America. How about we just go find the a-holes that are riding them illegally and doing wheelies? By the way, the name 12 O'Clock Boys, I was going to tell you where it comes from. It's really dumb. It doesn't sound very cool or hard. A 12 O'Clock Boy is a guy who gets his motorcycle up to a 90-degree angle, his wheelie up to a 90-degree angle because it resembles the 12 o'clock on the clock. That's where they got the name. And kids as young as 10 are seeing that and being like, that's what I want to go do. I'm committed to riding dirt bikes illegally in an urban area. And the people who make excuses say, well, they need some reason to blow off steam. It's the same thing. Students are worried about law enforcement surging as DC students go back to school in Washington, DC. No, the law enforcement is there for many of your quote unquote students and student age people. So they need help and they've proven it. There's tons of these videos, by the way, and I could show you more. But if you can't talk about the problem and you can't do it honestly, if you can't have like a reasonable discussion about like, hey, we got a real problem in this country and here's what it looks like. Here's another version of what that looks like. It looks like a teenage boy running against girls. And if we can't say, hey, as a father, I'm not going to allow my daughters to compete against young men. Just in the same way that I would say, look, this is a shit neighborhood and I'm not going to let my wife walk home in it. Can we do that? Can we just be honest about certain things and stop having the guilt? I'm going to give you a couple stories about why I think the Trump 2 presidencies spaced out actually ended it. I think that Donald Trump 1.0 did a 1-2 combo where it was phased and stunned. And I think the second election proved that people were just sick of it because we had Biden in the middle and we had COVID and we had the George Floyd riots and we had burning down and everybody made apologies for BLM. And then a bunch of people went like, hey, BLM was bullshit. It was a scam. The people who ran it bought mansions. There was no movement on the so-called issues that we were worried about. And what we found out is that those issues are emotional, but they're not based on fact. It's the same story as this. Oh, I don't want to infringe on this poor young boy who's super concerned and weirded out. Watch this dude dominate a bunch of little girls being, teenagers. Watch him. This is in Portland. This is like ground zero for crazy. I'm going to show you when people stop dealing with it or stop accepting it, that we're all better off. We can all be honest. Check this out.
Come on, Kelly!
8. Okay, so I cut away. I counted. It was at least 8 seconds, maybe 9 seconds between when the boy crossed. The boy with long hair, by the way. So he had long hair, so he was doing that. He had 9 seconds ahead of anybody else in a 400. He was like 100 yards in front of them, maybe more. Why would you let that happen? And then there's some like fat white chick down on the thing wearing a puffy jacket, giving him a high five. That actually is the real problem too. I know that we're moving away from this stuff. I know that we're not tolerating it nearly as much. And unfortunately, it's going to have to be certain people who step up and go, listen, what you're saying is crap. I'm not going to participate anymore. And it's going to have to be people on the left. And I think that Donald Trump actually moved the needle on some of these people because he just didn't apologize about it. And I think that's what people love about Donald Trump. That's, when I think he's funniest, it's because he's not apologizing about stuff that needs to be said. This is Snoop Dogg. I'm not a huge Snoop Dogg fan. I liked his music when I was younger because I was dumb. And now I don't like what Snoop Dogg represents. He's on the Breakfast Club talking about, I think it's the Breakfast Club, the Giving podcast, whatever that is. He's talking about a problem where we're going to introduce gender and race and all this crap and put guilt on people in kids shows. And most parents now, and I'm in the same boat because my kids are the age that would watch this. I'm like, why are you making me deal with this problem? I'm going to opt out of all of it. I won't be part of it. If Snoop Dogg's not going to be part of it and Kyle Serafin's not going to be part of it, and we're coming from pretty opposite ends of the world and the spectrum when it comes to politics and thoughts and the way that we live our life and our values, I think that shows a movement away from this nonsense.
I took my grandson to see, what was the movie with Buzz Lightyear?
Toy Story?
Not that one, but
the new Buzz. The Lightyear. I think it's called Lightyear.
Yeah, with Keke Palmer's in that movie.
Okay.
She plays like the daughter. So we watching it, and the lady, which is Keke's mama, they move on into the space years. They move down the line. They're like, man, she had a baby with a woman. Well, my grandson in the middle of the movie like, Papa Snoop, how she have a baby with a woman? She a woman. Oh, shit. I didn't come in for this shit. I just came to watch the goddamn movie. Hey, man, watch the movie. They just said she had a baby. They both women's. How did she have a baby? Shh. The movie ain't over with. So it's like, it's fuck me. I'm scared to go to the movies now. Like, y'all throwing me in the middle of shit that I don't have an answer for.
That's exactly what it is. You're putting me in the middle of something that I don't want to be part of it. And people that are like, not otherwise, that are inclined to be in that sort of camp of saying, yeah, like I'm liberal. I'm compassionate. I care about other people. That's where it starts going. This is a New York Times article that was run in 2019. How white guilt in the age of Trump shakes the Democratic primary. There's a lot in even just the headline there when the New York Times starts covering things. Changing racial attitudes of white liberals in 2020 and how they decide to vote for candidates. When Donald Trump was elected, Joel Olson was outraged at the racial tension that he felt fueled his rise, the silence of his white neighbors, and the stories of racial discrimination he heard from non-white friends. And black friends said they were followed around department stores, they claimed. Mr. Olson, who's white, became a member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Such an anachronistic name. He thought that white Americans were scared of the country's growing Latino population, so he joined the League of United Latin American Citizens. He now registers voters on a weekly basis, including with the Women's League, the League of Women Voters, to atone for his white privileges. I have to cover all my bases, he said, while wearing an NAACP shirt at a Kamala Harris rally. It hurts my heart that white people are afraid of this nation's growing Hispanic population, and I cannot allow that to continue. White liberal voters like Mr. Olson are thinking more explicitly about race than they did even a decade ago. And that is it. That was 2019. And where did that go? If you believe the election results, then you believe that it gave us a Joe Biden with a Kamala Harris as vice president. That guy was being manipulated by every single thing out there. They pushed all the buttons and he went out there and did exactly what he was told. Hey, black people are being infringed upon. Support black people. So he did. Latin people are being infringed upon. Support them. So he did. Women are being infringed upon. Their rights are being taken. Support women. So he did. And then he saw what it got them. What did it get them? More unrest, more inflation, the American dream getting pushed out of reach, 10 plus million people coming into this country. Not good outcomes for them, which if you've ever seen it, you know it's not good. Violence, burning down of American cities. Probably lost members of his family that won't talk to him ever again because of COVID shots and stuff and the sort of that sort of ideology that went down with it. This was the year before, by the way. The New York Times ran a story. How can I cure my white guilt? The things about privilege that it can be used for good. I don't think people are buying it anymore. I think that regular people are looking around going like, hey, asshole, you can't just break the law. It's not, they call it noticing on the social media trends. It's not wrong and it's not bigoted to look at something and realize that all of the people that do a certain thing look a certain way. That's actually a human survival instinct. We learned early on, if you study any psychology, you're like, oh, like stereotyping. It can be negative, but stereotypes can be good. And every single stupid entry-level American psychology class starts this in colleges. They go, what are some good stereotypes? And people will be like, Asians are smart. Asians are good at math. What are some bad stereotypes? Black people are criminals. You know, what's some good stereotypes about them? Oh, they're good at sports. Like all this sort of like basic low-level thinking. Why do we have stereotypes? Because it's a survival mechanism where you look around and you go, I don't think that all black people are a problem, but I do know that all the people on these damn motorbikes that are doing the carjackings in Washington, D.C. are black. So if I see a black person on a motorcycle that's doing things that are otherwise criminal, I might be a little bit more concerned. That's a logical and rational thing. It's not bigoted. It's based on evidence, and it's a survival tactic that is built into your brain. If God built us perfectly, for all the imperfection in this world, even if we use our tools imperfectly, that tool can be used to keep you alive so that you can do better things later. Can stats be manipulated? Absolutely. They certainly can. Can you find out that some of these things are used and used against you? Sure. How about Governor Newsom out in California? He likes to do that. The problem is that Americans are wise to this. And although many people probably couldn't pass a basic entry-level stats course, more and more, we're starting to see people get hip to it. Before I play this Governor Newsom video, let's do a quick break real quick. And you're going to have a Spotify ad for those listening on Spotify. There it is. And here we go. Watch this. This is Governor Newsom using statistics to lie. And people aren't buying that either because it's easily debunked. And my favorite guy to debunk them is Adam Carolla, if you guys don't know. He's great, and he hates Newsom.
Why are you protecting the folks there? 8 of the top 10 murder states in this country, red states. What bullshit?
So classic Newsom just on social media. He comes out and goes, I don't know what Trump is talking about. 8 out of 10 of the top state murder rates are in red states, which he was right. That is true.
Right.
But of course, when you go and then look at what the cities are, 9 out of 10 are Democrat, and the only one that's not Democrat just switched to Republican 6 months ago, and it's on its way down.
Yeah, it's all the cities that are Democrat run.
Such a classic Newsom manipulation. He doesn't know the bullshit he's spewing. It's really wild to see him do that.
Well, all he has is manipulation of numbers and statistics and workarounds. That's all he really has. You know, when you don't have the truth, that's about all you got. It's interesting that he's going to go, you know, sort of try this on the world stage now. We'll see if people are, I don't know if the word is dumb enough, but something enough to buy into that.
I think that some people are dumb enough, and I think less and less people are. I think there are far less people that are interested in how do I cure my white guilt, and they're more interested in how do I pay for my groceries, and how do I not have stupid danger everywhere I go? Like driving on the road. Shouldn't I be able to just do that and not get killed by some illegal alien trucker that comes from California under those bad policies? This was something that'll probably enrage many of you. This is a video clip from the arraignment, the initial appearance of the Indian truck driver who made an illegal U-turn in Florida and killed 3 people simply by turning a big rig that he should have never been behind the wheel of. And I'm going to play it without commentary, and I'm going to comment after the fact. And it's a little bit hard to listen to it, but just, you know, they're reading and then they're translating. So listen to this.
Good morning, sir. Please state your full name for the record.
Court's in session. Court's in session.
Harjinder Singh जी अपना पूरा नाम दस्सिया जरा ना
मेरा नाम हरजिंदर सिंह
My name is Harjinder Singh.
Okay, thank you, sir. You have been arrested on 2 separate warrants, sir.
ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਨਾ ਅਸੀਂ 2 ਵਾਰੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫੜਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ 2 ਵੱਖਰੇ ਵਾਰੰਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਤਹਿਤ
The first arrest warrant is for 3 counts of vehicular homicide.
ਪਹਿਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ
The second arrest warrant is for 3 counts of manslaughter.
ਤੇ ਦੂਜੇ ਵਾਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ 3 ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ
Delta North, second show B, Delta North.
Both arrest warrant affidavits were previously reviewed by a judge.
All right. And it goes on like that, where they have this stuttering and halting thing. Some of these initial appearances can be done in like 90 seconds, 2 minutes. They come in, they read the charges. Somebody has to translate it into whatever language it is, or they can understand English, ideally. And then they just go back and they make it, not guilty. And then we go into the next phase. In this case, they are slowly reading the stuff to this man. Then they're having this lady do these intermittent translations. Do they do that anywhere else? I guess that's the victory of the American system, that we have such a fair system that we're going to give a guy like that, who videotaped himself from a dash camera, who clearly was on scene and was arrested for doing the thing, who you can go back and find had all kinds of paperwork, because a CDL is not without like lots of documentation. The fact that he was driving a load, all that stuff is inspected. There's federal and there's state statutes that are coming to play, both in California where he got the license, back in Florida where he was driving the thing. All of this stuff, he's got a United States Department of Transportation, right? Requirement. All of these things were bypassed. This guy didn't do anything properly. He was allowed to work in a place that he should not have been, and he was given probably the single scariest amount of responsibility that nobody thinks about every day. Who the hell is driving enormous multi-ton loads where you are driving with your family members? Are you going to send your wife? Are you going to send your husband? Are you going to send your grandkids out into a vehicle and they're driving in their flipping minivan, and suddenly some guy who's driving a 53-foot-long trailer and a 40-foot-long rig in front of it does a 100-foot-long insane turn that ends up taking off the roof and all the heads of your family? Is that a possibility? Because that's what we're looking at right there. And it's disgusting. And we're so fair in this country. We're so just that we're giving him the same sort of, look at what's going on, even though he doesn't even speak our language. You ever seen court trials that have happened in other nations, even civilized nations, like other first world nations, where they're out there? Man, you better hope that your translator's keeping up, because the judge is saying things, the prosecution is saying things are moving, and you're just there because you don't even belong there, and they know it. That suicidal empathy, that sort of like, we feel so bad about the way that our country is, that it's so good and you didn't have the right to grow up here. You're apologizing by our system for the white privilege that you're hearing about, that white guilt, but it's going away and people are fed up with it. People on left and right, because more and more people get touched by this stuff. You want to turn somebody who's an avowed leftist into a right-wing radical, carjack them. And then watch that person get arrested and then let go the same day because they're a teenager, which is, by the way, the same story that we heard about from Mike Waller. And that person goes on to kill somebody. Be the person that had a family member that was killed by someone that was previously arrested for a previous violent offense, and see if that doesn't make you just a little bit more inclined to say all of this stuff is garbage. And we have an idea what it looks like if it goes full crazy. Because we have Great Britain. We separated from Great Britain. We took the testicles in that relationship. So America lives as a country that still nominally has balls. And then we can look back at the old country, where this country kind of founded out of, where we fought for independence from, right? I think that's a fair statement. We have Great Britain's balls in a jar somewhere, apparently, and we might want to go help them, because this was the craziest story that I heard this weekend. This is a lady talking about a man arrested because he said the most simple statement that we say in my house almost every single day. This is a common phrase for my children who are not bigoted, for my tiny little daughters and my son and my wife and myself. And there's no bigotry involved in it, but it could get you arrested in England right now.
Okay, check this. A man was just arrested in Britain for saying, "We love bacon," outside of a mosque protest. So at the protest outside the Didsbury Mosque, a British man shouted 3 words, "We love bacon." Police stepped in and arrested him, of course. Let's pause here. We're now living in a country where you can be arrested for saying you love a food. Not for threatening violence, not for waving a knife, not for doing a throat-slitting gesture at people from a hotel window, not for walking inside somebody else's house, trespassing whilst holding your bits, that's fine as well. But for saying that you love bacon, because Muslims don't eat bacon, that's now a hate crime. The authorities know they can't control the migrant chaos, so instead they try and control you. They police the words of ordinary British people because that's easier than facing the consequences of their own policies. And the excuse? They'll call it hate speech. So what do we get? Arrests for bacon, lockdown drills for kids, and a government pretending it's all community safety.
And how do you end up with that?
Indicating what?
And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu indicating
You get it because you have propaganda for news that goes out there and floats something that's not true on the AP, on the news wires, on the NPR types, and the hard left is starting to, even the people on the hard left have to look at this and just go like, nope. And that's why you see the Democrat Party underwater. There are some people that will never not believe this. The chat actually pointed out over the weekend, I found a picture of a woman who was showing off her cast and a broken arm, allegedly. We have no idea whether it's true or not. Was showing off her cast, said she lived in Chicago, that Chicago doesn't need the National Guard. By the way, Trump's talking about putting the National Guard there, which means it's racist. It's racist to put law enforcement or some sort of federal occupying group, God forbid they have weapons, even though that's what they're going in there to go do. It's like create law and order. They're going to put the National Guard in Chicago potentially. And why would they do it? Because Chicago can't take care of its own problems. And they've proven it by not taking care of their own problems and allowing significant increases in crime to the point where you can have a shootout in broad daylight and nobody's going to go to jail in Chicago. If you guys don't follow HeyJackass.com, go check it out. Look at their website. You'll see all of the things of what they call Chicago values, which is basically black people killing other black people. And that's where the threat is. And if you're a black person that's in my tribe, and there's tons of them, by the way, I had Saika Masqua hit me up over the weekend. And he was like, what's up, bro? Like, where you been? I never see you. It's like, yeah, like, I love that guy. Why? Because he has the same values as me. He cares about family. He cares about raising his kids. First thing he did, send me pictures of his daughter and his son. Because we have the same value system. So we're the same. We don't have the same skin color, but everything else is, we have the same sense of humor. He works for Babylon Bee, right? I got guys that serve with me in the military. They look not like me at all. Tatted up, different muscular build, different color skin, irrelevant. We care about our kids. We care about making sure that they are raised to be good citizens, that they stay out of trouble, that they have sort of the same generational knowledge that we had. We want to teach them how to take care of themselves and to be self-reliant and to be good citizens to each other and to their friends and so on and so forth. It doesn't really matter what you look like. You could be part of my tribe and look nothing like me. There's tons of them. But it's based on values, which is what America used to actually agree on, which is why every single freaking show you saw in the 80s and the 90s, they all had a freaking moral. I'm sorry, I'm getting animated about this. They had a moral to the story. Do you remember every damn sitcom you saw? There was a moral to the story at the end of it. Like, don't lie to your friends, tell them the truth up front and you'll have less problems or whatever it was. You knew what the moral was. And it didn't matter whether it was watching, Urkel and Family Matters. If you're watching with Hanging with Mr. Cooper, you watch Sister, Fresh Prince, even the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. What was the entire point of that show? He was in a crowd of people who all were black in Philly that beat the crap out of him. He got in one little fight, which was going to result in his death because he was involved in a gang or he was involved in a place where there were gangs doing dangerous things. So they sent him to Beverly Hills where the nice white people were, but also nice black people who had money. How crazy is this stuff? It's so simple. We knew this. We knew this 30 years ago, and Americans didn't apologize about it. Super simple. They knew what was up, and they lost it. They got 30 years of retrospective to try to shove it back down. They got a reset with Obama, and all that's terrible. I'm going to play you one little thing of where it ends up going, because obviously it's on purpose. This is a report from a guy that I love watching. I love his accent. I don't love Irish accents in general, but I like this guy because I like the way he talks. I like what he says. And what he's saying is this is clearly on purpose, but people are getting sick of it. The real crime right now is noticing too soon. If you notice too soon. If you bring people into your country that want to be part of your country, that add value to your country, that share the values of your country, we don't have a problem, especially if they don't break the law to get here, which is the real key. I've lived next door to people who came here from Africa. We had the same values. We cared about family. We cared about, starting businesses. We paid about making sure that our houses were in compliance with the HOA, which we both hated, but we did it anyway because that's what we bought into, and that's what the rules are of the area where we lived. And we all wanted bigger spaces and property and more space for our kids to play. That's easy. It's when you start bringing in a thing and apologizing for other people not having your values and acting like you're the problem for having values in the first place. That's the craziness. And I think Donald Trump has mostly done away with that. At least in the sane, rational people and the people that are still holding out and think that somehow this guy is the dirty bad man because he's going to deport Kilmore Arbrega Garcia and that these guys standing outside of a building somehow represent a threat. The only places where you see this kind of like military presence standing armed is where you've actually created the problem in the first place. Third world corruption. If you import all of the people that are from the third world that look like that, guess what? You're going to get third world results. If you bring a shitload of people in from Latin America where they're used to seeing armed people in camouflage carrying machine guns, then that's what we're going to need to bring it back. Anyway, my Irish guy, I can't remember his name, but it'll be on the screen in a second here, talking about the problem. And this is a microcosm. Ireland, very, very small. China, huge. Same number of foreigners, not per capita, he's saying, by the way. He's saying the actual number of foreigners that are allowed to emigrate in. Tells you something about people that understand that values matter.
China's a big country. Lots of people, much more than Ireland. Lots of land, much more than Ireland. But guess what? Ireland has roughly the same amount of foreigners as China does. The same amount as China. China's a lot wealthier, it's a lot bigger, a lot more people, and we have the same amount of foreigners. You wonder why in the last 10 years you look around and Ireland has drastically changed. You wonder why your house prices have increased massively. You wonder why GPs have a 3-week waiting list. Why hundreds of thousands are on waiting lists for hospital appointments. It's because Ireland, our politicians are flooding this country with immigrants. Completely unsustainable. And it's happening like that. And they're pushing the narrative now that if you have a problem with immigration, something that for hundreds of years people took very seriously, but now, even if you were to talk about it, maybe say there's too much, you're racist, you're bigoted, you just hate other people, having a problem with your country being demographically changed, flooding the place with non-Irish people, you have a problem with that, well, you're just racist. Let it happen. Stop
being racist. Stop doing those things. He goes on to explain exactly what we've all heard. And that's why people don't talk about it. And most people will get canceled from their job because there's still that attitude, that quote unquote political correctness from 30 years ago that popped up where you're not allowed to talk about certain things. I don't have that problem right now, but I will be called a racist. I was called a racist all weekend. And the old excuse used to be like, well, I've got black friends. Like, how dare you? Here's the thing. I don't give a shit if you call me a racist because I have black friends that I've had for decades and I don't care. It has nothing to do with them being black. I don't like people that are liars. I don't like people that are criminals. I don't like people that don't share my values, and I don't care what you look like, which is why I don't live in not America, whether it be Washington, D.C. or New York City. I don't want to go there. I don't want to hang out in California. I don't want to go to San Francisco. If you don't share my values, you're not my people. It doesn't matter what you look like. I just threw a news story up that we're going to end with, and it's pretty strange because you're like, how in the hell does that tie in, Seraphin? First human case of flesh-eating screwworm parasite detected in the United States, HHS confirms. Is that a big turn from what I was just talking about? I'm going to tell you it's not. And I'll tell you why. You know I will. The craziest, weird stories oftentimes come back to things that make perfect sense. The first human case of flesh-eating screwworm parasite was detected in the United States. The case is related to a person who recently traveled to El Salvador, and it was confirmed by the CDC on August 4th. The amazing thing is that this is on NBC News. It was one of their main stories this morning. It's quite salacious. And it says the spokesperson for the CDC said, quote, the risk to public health in the United States from this introduction is very low. But the opportunity to implement means of controls is very high. But what we don't find And they go on to talk about how like they were serious outbreaks in Central America in the 80s and 90s, and that this thing, lays a bunch of eggs and they can hang out and you can have them transfer. Do you guys know that when you go into a state like California, that they like want to do a strip search of you to find out whether you have any fruit or vegetables from not California? And that's in the United States. One of the amazing things about having a bunch of illegal aliens coming into your country, particularly from El Salvador, which is where we get the MS-13 guys. It's where we get Kilmore Abrego Garcia. When you have the back and forth of the family members and the attorneys and also some of our like dim-witted, white guilt sort of selling senators and Congress people going back and forth to these places, they come back with stuff. They do. Maybe they come back with a bunch of eggs for a flesh-eating screwworm that's going to end up screwing up livestock and cattle because that's what it's going to be. The only solution is going to be more government, by the way. There's always the same solution to it. The left always sees, well, if we just had more government. Nope. For those of us that are conservative on the right, the answer is really straightforward. Let the government that is supposed to work. Enforce your borders. Don't let these people come in. If you come from a country that has nasty things like flesh-eating human screwworm parasites or that targets our livestock, it turns out that our businesses are really important to us and we need to be able to eat. So you can't come in. You have no right to be here. We don't care. The Chinese do it. Remember, the left was super into doing COVID lockdowns the way the Chinese do. How about we do some basic lockdowns on the border like the Chinese do, which was the point of the Ireland story. Did that weave it all through? I hope it did. And if it didn't, leave me a comment and tell me why it didn't make sense, because I want to know that. By the way, the answer that they have to the screwworm problem is breeding billions of sterile flies and dumping them from the air in southern Texas and Mexico to stop the parasite spread so that they'll basically like breed with sterile flies and then not have more. That sounds awesome. I can't see that being the start of a freaking zombie movie either, right? All right. I'm going to remind you guys that if you guys want to support the program, it's free, it's cheap. It takes a little bit of your time, I guess, so it's not totally free. You can subscribe to any channel. YouTube, we just hit 12,000 subscribers over there. Thanks so much for those of you following on YouTube. Rumble, we're almost at 30,000, so we appreciate you there. X, I think we're coming up on 250,000 or something like that, so follow us on all those places. At Kyle Seraphin, rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin, and youtube.com/@Kyle Seraphin. Locals is kyleseraphin.com. If you guys want to be part of that program, super easy, great community, little behind-the-scenes stuff. We love it. I love being able to see what you guys write, because some of you guys have some real weird ideas, and they are funny, and it's where I can share with you things that don't really make it into the podcast or they're too long. kyleseraphin.com. You can be a free member of the community, no big deal. You can be a paid member if you guys want to support what we're doing, and you want to push back against FBI tyranny and all that stuff. That's you supporting my unpaid government activism that I do. I do have to give you a palate cleanse because it's been a day like that. So let's see what we got here. I bet you I got something kind of funny that we can pull. Something about a man who's just had enough. This might even be a little bit long, but why not? I saw this weekend, and it kind of made me smile. A little taste of how we can tolerate certain people, but we can't tolerate others. Where in the heck is this recording? See, this is the building it on the fly while we're at here. Stand by. We'll find it. It is a man who is a pharmacist, and he's my tribe, clearly. But he doesn't look like me. You guys are going to be shocked. He's got tattoos. Where in the hell is this guy? All right, it may have to wait for tomorrow. It will wait for tomorrow, so I'll give you something else. How about a Gen X boomer throwback to people who are young and are gay and want to try Everclear? This is totally unrelated.
Today we're trying Everclear.
What? Whoa, 1985 flashback.
Taking a shot with no reaction, that's the goal.
No reaction? Yeah, that's not going to happen.
190 proof, 95 ABV.
Oh, you don't have to tell us that. We know its origin story. Oh, he's not mixing that with anything. This poor kid. There it is. Yup. And the record for somebody attempting to drink Everclear without mixing it with something is 0 for however many times they attempted to do this. You didn't have any elder Gen X or millennials you could have conferred with that they could have warned you about this? I could actually smell it now, and it's not even anywhere near me. This was our form of entertainment at every party. There was always at least one person that tried this, and they always failed. It is liquid fire. Everclear is the reason why we have most of the emojis we have today. That was the inspiration for the faces. Even when you mixed it with something, it didn't help much at all. Well, on the bright side, your mouth is now sterilized for the next 15 years.
There you go. Some of you guys just had some college flashbacks. I'm not mad at that. I did find the clip in the middle of that. I needed a clip to get away to go find the pharmacist. We'll play it tomorrow. No big deal. For the quick question that popped up, I've seen it both chats from both our Rumble chat and our YouTube chat. Who are the 10 FBI agents that got reinstated? Nobody did. No FBI agents got reinstated. Kash Patel still full of crap over there at the FBI, and we're going to keep pushing him. Go follow me on X if you guys don't already. You can see my message to him from the morning, this morning, and the list of the 10 who are supposed to be reinstated. They, by the way, do include Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle. Hasn't happened. God bless all of you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring about what's going on to those folks and my buddies over there. And I look forward to seeing you guys through this week. This week, we do mediation with the DOJ on Friday, so it's going to be a little interesting. And we're recording an interview with an FBI whistleblower who you don't know yet, at least not from here. So look forward to that on the Sunday. It's going to be a big one. Have a great rest of your day, and let's get this thing started off properly.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.